All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my video that is going to be talking about Catalyst and the possible buffs that she should either be given or things that I thought of that could be tossed around as ideas to potentially bring her back into this new meta that has evolved, and that is a meta in which a lot of the legends are really strong. And so I have a set of lists that I'd like to go through. I'm going to start off with her passive, what can be improved there, then her spikes, then her wall, and then I'll finish out with some perk ideas as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that I could talk about for her doors is a reduction in the timer. Now, what you'll notice in this video, and I'll turn the dummies off while I'm saying this, but right now, the way that the doors work, for those of you who don't know, is when the door breaks, there's a 3-second timer. Here's the dummy spawning. Let's turn that off for now. There's a 3-second timer before you could caddy another door again. So I'm going to break this door, for instance, and I'm going to caddy it. If I break it down, you'll see I have a 3-second timer. And so the idea is just to give it a more, a reduced timer. So it's maybe like 2 seconds, for instance. Now, personally for me, I don't see this buff being necessary. Like, some of the stuff I'll throw out in this video are kind of wild and maybe, in a sense, too overpowered, but I still want the idea to be out there just so the Apex developers have sort of a general idea of what a Catalyst main is like, thinking, like what's going on in our heads. But a reduction to the timer, I feel like if you reduce it to 1 second, for instance, it would make her pretty overpowered in my opinion. So I don't really think that doing anything to her door currently is something that is very necessary. But it is something to maybe consider. Next, this one's pretty obvious. Give her more doors. Right now, she can only do 2. Maybe give her a third one. This is mainly due to the fact that with Wattson now being able to put an electrified door down and she can have 12 fences, that means that she could, in theory, electrify a total of 6 doors. So the fact that Catalyst can only block 2 feels a little bit underwhelming, and so maybe adding a third door could be a potential way to give her a little bit more strength. Another idea is, and this one's interesting, and again, this is kind of where she can become a little bit more OP, but only make it so Catalyst doors can be destroyed via melees or grenades. So that means no ults like Horizon, Sparrow. I would say Fuse cluster grenades would probably be the only passive or Q that can break a door down. Like, I could see that still. But anything else, like Bangalore ults, Gibby ults. Let me see. I'll just go into the character legend to how many characters can break her door down. So Bangalore can break her door down. Fuse can break the door down. Maggie can break the door down. If we go to Skirmishers, Horizon can break the door down. Alter can go through the door. She can actually put a portal on a door that's catalyzed, but not on the door itself, which is very interesting. Let's see. Who else? Valkyrie can take the door down. Sparrow can take the door down with his ult. Gibby can take the door down. You have Newcastle with his slam can take the door down. And then Rampart can take the door down. So I think that's about half the legends can take her door down. Which, don't get me wrong, that's a good thing for counterplay. And this is why this is considered, in my opinion, one of the more overpowered changes. But to make it via grenades and doors would kind of make, if you will, a buff for Fuse, because he'll be a viable counter against Catalyst. But I do think it may be a consideration of like what can actually break a Catalyst door down. The next thing is that, and this one is an idea that I had when they were giving buffs to like Ashe before they gave this buff to Wattson, and that is when you kick the door, it does damage to you. Now, again, this is very similar to Wattson because Wattson has an electrified door. Did I just hear a cat? Sorry, I'm distracted by this cat sound. Anyway, Watson has an electrified door, and that does damage when you try to even open it, and you get stunned from it. So the fact that, you could sit there and break the door down without, any cost, if you will, to the player, I feel like can make people, just not really care about the door, and they'll just kick it down. Obviously, it takes 4 kicks for a door like this and 2 kicks for a catalyzed door, but I still think that, like, from my perspective, trying to enter into a Watson building feels a lot more hard and difficult, just because if I try to open a door, I have to deal with the fence giving me damage, giving me a stun, and then not only that, but once I do break the door down, I have to deal with taking the fence down. So Watson's has like 2 layers to it, whereas Catalyst has 1 with no drawbacks to the enemy actually trying to breach. Next, I want to go over this thing called door state priority, and I personally believe this to be a necessity. Like, this should be how Catalyst doors work. And what I mean by door priority is when I'm playing Catalyst, what ends up happening is I'm running from an enemy, for instance, and I'm like trying to get into a building. And I'll do something like this, and I'll try and, close the door behind me. But what will happen is while I'm closing the door and it's catalyzed, there'll be an enemy that is trying to run through, and you can tell, like, obviously I'm Catalyst, so the door priority is on me. But for an enemy, even though this is catalyzed, and in theory they couldn't move through this, they'll still be able to walk through and push it open still, despite me closing it. And so what I'm proposing is that in a case where I'm running and I'm closing it on someone, since they're not allowed to technically open this, for me, I would rather the doors stay where they are and trap the player, because they can still shoot through this crack, but they can't at least get into the building, so I can at least find maybe some sort of angle to take cover or pop a bat or something. But this is something that I die to every once in a while, and it's something that's very annoying. With that, we're going to end the door passive. There's one slight thing that I want to talk about, though, and that is giving Catalyst a second passive. So the second passive, what it would do, and I've talked about this actually in a couple parts of the subreddits, and that is giving Catalyst this idea called Pharaoh slide, in which she slides with a higher velocity and basically gets a speed boost from it, just a small one. And you might say that, like, oh, this is a skirmisher perk. Why would you give a control legend a skirmisher perk? And I get that. However, Sparrow's a recon legend, but has probably one of the best skirmisher passives ever. And he's, like I said, he's a recon legend. Like, the ability to double jump or wall jump should be a skirmisher thing, in my opinion. So for a control legend to get that, I wouldn't think that's too far off. Similar with, again, I'm going to be comparing a lot to Watson. Watson has the support perk ability, so why not give a skirmisher-like perk to a controller legend? Like, it's not too far out there, I feel like. And the reason why this would play into her kit so well, in my opinion, is let's say I'm over here in a larger building, and I don't know if there's a door over there. It doesn't look like there's a door over there. But let's say I'm like defending the stairs, for instance, and then let's say a Bangalore pops the smoke and it breaks my door. If I want to make sure that I cut that door off in time before the Bangalore can get there, it'd be really nice to be able to just slide over, have a little bit of a speed boost, and get there before she can. Because there are a lot of times where I'm trying to slide over to be able to... Oh, there's the cat. We found it. El gato. Anyway, there will be a lot of times where I'm like sliding to get to the door and I queue it, but they're able to walk in. And once more, again with the door priority, even though they open the door and I have it catalyzed like this, they still walk through and right into the building. So it would be nice to be able to get there before they do and prevent them from entering. All right, now that I have all my passive shenanigans out of the way, let's talk about her Q. This Q, in my opinion, is very underwhelming compared to other Legends now. One of the I have two necessary things that should be done to these spikes. The first one is I want a reduced activation time. What I mean by that is when I throw my spikes down, they take like 3 whole seconds before they actually activate. And let me turn the dummies back on here to kind of show you what I'm getting at. So I'll throw a spike down like this. And this, okay, maybe it doesn't work with the dummies. That's kind of a little bit of an L on my part. Maybe if I turn friendly fire on. Let me see if it'll work. Where's friendly fire? It's not in here. Is it in here? It wouldn't be in my actual settings. It'd be in customize range. Am I blind? I'm probably blind. Oh, I can't turn it on because it's by myself. That sucks. Okay. Well, anyway, what I'm getting at is when I throw my spike down versus the time it actually takes to activate is super, super slow compared to like Wattson fences or caustic gas traps. And what ends up happening because of this is I get way too many people. I'll throw a spike down and they'll just enter before they take any damage whatsoever, any slow from the spike at all. They'll literally just walk through it like it's nothing. And the second thing to kind of pair with this is the hitbox. So many times I've seen Horizons, Sparrows, Ashes, Bangalores, whoever, if they're on something like this and they're trying to get inside and they go like this, they won't get stopped here. They'll get stopped when they get here. And personally for me, I don't think the hitbox should be that low. I think it should be increased because if I'm in a closed building, for instance, and let's go down here for example, if I throw a spike down and a Sparrow is able to double jump over it, in my head, that just makes no sense. Because a Sparrow basically, like his feet are like right here, which means that the hitbox is like even lower. It's a personal gripe of mine, but it's something that I think would be able to help Catalyst, and that is literally just increase the hitbox to be like equal to or higher than the jump height. Because with Caustic and Wattson, for instance, their gas traps actually have that like third dimension, if you will, where you could be just a little bit higher or a little bit lower than the actual trap, and it'll still get you. I mean, for Wattson's, it's like a full body one, right? It's a full height. And so for Catalyst, I think just giving her a higher hitbox would be better. As well as that reduced activation time. Another thing that is already a perk of hers, I think it should be reverted. Give her 3 spikes back. You'll see me talk about this with the wall as well, but just revert her original perks back into her base kit. It'll help her be a little bit more strong. But I would just increase that number to 3 again instead of going overkill with 4. But we'll get to that when we get to perks. Another thing is to increase the area. These spikes, area-wise, compared to caustic traps or how far a Wattson fence can stretch, is literally just like 0 area. Because so many people can literally just, in most cases, if you place them out in the open, just walk around them. It's not like they are an actual threat trying to take up area. Because as a control legend, you want to take up as much area as possible. But for Catalyst, with only 2 spikes in her base kit, you can only take up this area, this singular walkway, and there's still spaces where people will play. So increasing her spike area to maybe, I don't know, being double the width would be really nice. We have a spike that's something like this. I feel like this would be a lot more threatening to people. And especially when you're in a building, it'll help cover up a lot of the building. Next, let's talk about another nerf that they gave her that they should bring back. Bring back her hitbox. For those of you who don't know, back in season, I think 15 and 16, and I think halfway through 17, the orbs that would appear on catalysts, things that you can shoot, they used to have a hitbox, and so as a catalyst, you could play off of them, but now they don't. And so a lot of people, even though they're shooting your orb, they're still piercing and shooting you. I think if they just brought it back, it would allow catalysts to have a little bit more defensive capability to defend a certain point of interest. And another thing that they should bring back as well is the damage despite not having LOS of the orb. Because we used to be able to place the spikes like this, and even though someone was on this side of the door, they'd still be taking damage. I personally feel that they should bring it back. Granted, caustic gas and Watson fences don't do something like that. However, I feel like it might bring back a little bit of that uniqueness for Catalyst with the fact that she can block a certain doorway from the inside. All right, moving on. This one's a little bit of a mad pick for me, but this is that her spikes do more damage. Now, personally, I was thinking about increasing them to 20 damage, and a lot of people will say that's a lot of damage, and I understand that. But for the fact that you only get 2 of them, and the fact that they don't have a lot of health, only being 300, it lends to a lot of, it actually makes Catalyst spikes a bit more threatening, and people might be more hesitant to walk through it. Because again, there are so many times I see people just walk through my spikes like it's nothing, as if there's no consequence to running through these things. And so what I would advise is if we up the damage, people might actually back up for a second and reconsider whether or not they're going to want to take the damage to go through and actually push into a building or something, or a certain area. All right. Another idea that I had that got caught by Caustic is take the dashes and jumps and any movement ability away when people touch your spike. I feel like in the trailer for Catalyst, when they showed the characters kind of, like I think it was Mad Maggie and Fuse, getting dragged and pulled down and tripping over the spikes, that's exactly what those are supposed to do. So the fact that they don't take any movement away from Ash or Sparrow or Octane or Bangalore or Pathy, in my opinion, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And why they gave it on Caustic and not Catalyst, I have no clue. But it would be really nice for me to, again, have the spikes be a threat to skirmisher legends who are thinking about pushing into a building. Because if they can't have a dash, if they can't have a double jump, if they can't have a stim, if they can't have double time to get themselves out of that situation, then they really need to consider, okay, how am I going to play around this instead of just rushing in? Another thing that I've considered, and this is kind of an odd one, but if someone enters in your spikes, then once they kind of exit, and after, I guess, being in it, they're silenced. I don't think this really goes along with Catalyst Kit that much, but I do think that it might be an idea that is kind of interesting for, all legends to kind of walk into the spike and then be silenced for a short amount of time. It wouldn't be that much, but it would make it so, Wraiths can't queue out. Again, Octanes can't stim. Horizons can't queue out. Things like that. And it would help bring the spike back to kind of a very threatening trap. Finally, the last thing that I want to cover, and this is a quality of life thing for the spikes, and that is fix the geometry. As you can see, there's kind of like a hole there, and I don't mind the spikes overtaking like this. Like, this is great. But there are some times when I do throw a spike, for instance, and this is a perfect example of it. I have a door caddied like this, but I throw a spike down, and it doesn't go through the wall. I don't know why this happens, because if you look for a 4 times caddied door, it works just fine. Like, I don't know if this is a bug or something, but if you throw it down and then do this, it's still there. Like, it doesn't block it. So if they could just fix that so it does go through the door, that'd be really nice, because it's a little inconsistent, and when you're in a fight, you kind of don't want to care about the order that you get something done. You just need to get it done as fast as possible. So for me to sit there and be like, oh, I got to throw a spike before I can caddy the door, kind of wastes time if the priority is trying to caddy that door. So that is just another small quality of life fix that I want to give. All right, and finally, the wall. If you ask me, her wall's the strongest part of her kit without a doubt, but there are a couple changes that I think could potentially make it more threatening, etc., etc. So first thing, I'm repeating myself, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, increase the length and timer back to its original, just revert the perks. Literally revert the perks, and Catalyst has gone up at least a single tier, in my opinion, of how viable she is. I don't think they need to be perks. I think they should revert them, just like what they did with, I think, Seer not too long ago. Secondly, it'd be really cool if you could toggle the orientation of your wall. Just one button. It doesn't have to be that hard, but just to go from a line like this to a horizontal line like this that I can bring kind of close or far would be really neat. And the reason why I ask for only this significant of a change to her wall is because there are times when, for instance, let's say there's a team fighting here and there's a team fighting here, and I'm a Catalyst and it's final ring closing, and I want those two teams to fight so I can third party whoever wins, right? However, if I want to split these two teams, I have to make the risk of going towards one of these teams to be able to throw the wall like this. And so all the while I'm doing that, I have a team literally right here that I'm next to throwing my life to try and just block a wall. And similarly, the team that's looking already at this team, engaging in a sniper battle or something, now they see me in their sights, and now I'm prone to getting knocked from both teams. And so the risk to do this, I feel like, is awfully high, which I understand it is a very powerful tool. However, I do feel like if you're in a position where you really cannot go and make a safe rotation like over here, like you can't like sneak up behind this cover, like let's say you're in an open field like on Olympus, for instance, like being able to make it over here to throw up a wall might not be that viable, and you might risk dying or getting shot at because you're just out in the open trying to throw that wall up. And so being able to have a horizontal wall allows you to stick with your team and then throw the wall up so those two teams can keep fighting. Another thing they can do, and this one actually just came to my head, make the animation for the wall a lot faster for her hands. There are a lot of times when I'm throwing up a wall and I accidentally, like as I'm doing it, I'll run into someone and I can't have my gun out because it takes a whole 3 seconds to do. Here, I'll just show you right now. But I can't have my gun out for quite a while. I think if they just made the animation a little bit faster, it'd be quite nice as a quality of life improvement. All right, with that being said, let's get on to some of the perk ideas. Some of these are the same that I mentioned for buffs. For instance, I think they should keep that rebuilding door perk. I think that's one of the best perks that they've come up for Catalyst so far. The other one is increase the spike health from 300 to 600. So basically just double it. The reason for that is I think it would allow, again, if they brought the hitbox back, to make the spikes a lot more beefy to play on, and you can actually play around and on your spike. But it also makes it harder for enemies to try and push in because they have to really try and take that trap out. Another thing, or another perk that would be a blue one, is if they reverted her spikes to 3, maybe make it so she can have 4 spikes. Personally, I think that might be a little bit overkill, but Caustic has 6 traps, Wattson has 12 fences. Catalyst only has 2. Rampart, I think, can have 6 walls up. So I just feel like Catalyst has literally the lowest amount of traps by a multiple of 3. It's kind of odd in my opinion. Like I said, another perk that they could do, increase the spike area. I would like to see maybe if they did one path is you increase spike area, and another one is you can increase the number or the health. That'd be really cool. And then another purple perk is increase the spike damage, like I mentioned earlier, to from 15 to 20 to make it during late game quite threatening. And then, again, another purple perk is one I mentioned. Only let the doors be damaged via melee or grenades. For an alt idea for a perk, I have this idea where instead of, you throwing a wall outward, you actually are the point of the wall. So what I mean by that is, let's say I have my hands out and I'm about to throw up my ult. I start my ult here, and a timer pops up for the percentage of wall that I have, and wherever I walk, a wall will just protrude from me. I think it'd be quite interesting to have, because it will allow me as a catalyst, like if I want to be heavily into movement, and again, if I have a Pharaoh slide, for instance, I could potentially, like, if there's a team that's like on the other side of this wall or something and they're fighting someone, I could potentially just create like an arc for that team so they can't back out of that fight that they're taking. Or even better yet, I can kind of run around and slide for my team and create this very unique cover that we can play on. And we could have maybe, like, for instance, if I make a zigzag pattern like this, then my teammates will be able to have some part of the wall that they can like hide behind as not only cover from this side, but cover from this side. And so it allows for a little bit more of a interesting play on Catalyst's wall, depending on how she walks around. Next, this idea is pretty simple. This perk would give her a speed boost whenever she's in her spikes. I feel like if you, again, pair that along with the Pharaoh slide, she can be quite speedy. Personally, for me, again, I don't think there's a problem with this legend going into like a skirmisher control-ish like class, because Wattson is a support control legend, if you ask me, and Rampart is like assault / control, especially I think with the new stuff that's coming out for her in season 27. And then Caustic, I feel like, is the only legend that's like a doubled down version of control, which I think that's totally fine for him. But to have Catalyst be able to like walk faster in her spikes or go holster speed in her spikes or something like that would be really nice, and make it so, if I'm running and trying to chase someone, I can keep throwing spikes to potentially slow them down, but also speed me up so I can also, catch up to them and be able to close that distance. Next idea that I have, this one I think I mentioned once in the subreddit, but that is to catalyze the wall so it's a solid. Now, one thing, and that is that it will only happen for 5 seconds, one time per wall. So I would be able to throw up my wall, and then at some certain time, maybe I press the ult button again, it'll catalyze it into a solid. The reason for this is I think it'll allow her to, be a lot more solid of rotation, because let's say you have a Rampart sitting up there and she sees you throw that wall up and she's able to decently track you, to be able to kind of cut her off from dealing any damage or downing anyone in your teammates, especially if you're rotating and you get caught with people, shooting a G7 from somewhere or something like that. It allows you to, finish your rotation and actually get to the destination you're trying to get to. All right, the final thing that I have, and this one, again, this would be a blue perk, actually, but I'm not too much of a fan of it myself, and that is make the door health go up by 1. So instead of making Catalyst doors 4 kicks, you make them 5, and make the catalyzed doors 3 kicks instead of 2. I think it would be a little interesting. It might be even overpowered, I would argue, because being able to have that 5 kicks means you're able to safely get a res off and potentially pop a cell at least. Because I know from the way people kick doors, it takes roughly around a res for a 4 kick door to go down. So to be able to have 5 would allow, whoever you get up to maybe get behind cover, maybe find a swap, something like that. And so that is going to conclude my 25 plus ideas for Catalyst buffs. I'm praying that they buff her in season 28, because it seems like that's who they're kind of going around the control legends every season, because they went from I think it was Caustic they went from Wattson to Caustic, now to Rampart in the next season. So I'm really hoping that they, make Catalyst great again, because she once used to be, one of the best control legends, and now she has a pick rate literally of 0.3%, and it's going to dwindle down with this next season coming up. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate if you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe. For those of you who don't know, I do stream on Twitch every Sunday through Thursday, in which I literally play Catalyst. And people might say I'm insane for doing that because she's not like the best legend right now, but I personally still like playing her. It would just be really nice to see some quality of life added to her, some buffs added to her, and get her back into a more meta-based slash skirmisher-based role. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.